Well, welcome everyone to the final panel of the day, the Sovereign Smart Home, Smart Building. This is an interesting talk as we're here gathered to talk about Hashrate heating, Bitcoin miners in homes and businesses as energy infrastructure, heating infrastructure, really a utility at the end of the day. I wanted to get these guys together that are working on such cool projects to talk about more of the sovereign smart tech stack in a building. Things that come to mind are computers that are also heaters, so digitized heat, private LLMs, security, right, where your data is going, that kind of thing. Home servers, is SaaS dead, these types of things, and how all of these building blocks, and also communication protocols that Joe's working on, so I want to dive into all of this stuff. It's really an exciting time to be alive. A lot of stuff is happening fast, especially with the advent of AI. Each of us are working on kind of different building blocks that I think can be used together to make more freedom tech in homes and businesses that not just, may save you money on some heating bills, but actually improve your life for the better. What the smart home is really thought of as right now is light bulbs and, blinds and thermostats, but you already got people with solar and batteries. What if you also have LLM compute in the home and Bitcoin mining, a money printer in the home that can also be used as a heater, and what's the best way to communicate between all of these internet connected devices? So welcoming to the stage, Marks of Maple AI, Matt Hill of Start9, and Joe of Tether Mining. Welcome, I'm excited to have you guys here. Let's get back into what we were just talking about, Matt. So you have been building for a long time now, StartOS. An abstraction, as you said, of Linux to make it easy to run things at home, a home server. With the advent of AI, I think what you were describing, correct me if I'm wrong, is this abstraction another layer further with AI, where that user interface becomes even simpler. They might not even need to look at it. They can communicate with the device. What's been going on at Start9? How are you thinking about this stuff?
So specifically with AI and with the phenomena around OpenClaw that we've seen in the last month, it's crazy that a month ago that wasn't a thing. It's really opened people's eyes as to what is possible for themselves and their families and their businesses into the future. And what they're recognizing is that it's like kind of getting bit by a radioactive spider. You suddenly feel like you have superpowers, right? Like all the things that would have taken you hours or weeks to do or required you to hire entire departments can now be executed in a vibe code session in the middle of the night. And that's a really intoxicating, and if you're someone like me, almost obsessive emotion, right? Like you just freak out and geek out around it. And I don't think that's a fad. I know it's not. This is real, and it's a tidal wave coming for the whole world, and everyone's trying to figure out how to kind of navigate this and leverage it for their own benefit, which is exactly what they should be doing. The problem is that a lot of the tools that are emerging around this, it's happening so fast, are incredibly unsafe, imprivate, undignified, insecure. We're just sort of barreling into this with the energy of a 18-year-old getting drunk for the first time, right? And the hangover is going to be just an absolute devastating experience for so many people. And so we are really thinking about this in a very kind of sober, measured, longer-term approach, trying to figure out...
It's fun you're saying this with a beer in your hand.
I'm completely sober, though. This is for thirst and refreshment.
Local favorite.
We're thinking about this in a very measured way because we want the best of both worlds. We want ourselves and everyone to be able to leverage these tools, full automation for your whole life, but in a way that is secure, private, and dignified. And that effectively means the absence of intermediaries and custodians as part of the entire computing experience. And that is very difficult to achieve, but luckily it's the problem that we have been working on for now 6 years and are doing quite well with, but we've had to really rethink and accelerate some timelines in order to accommodate this rapidly changing landscape.
You said a couple pain point words, Marks, security, privacy, because my understanding is we're running things locally on a StartOS box, but all of that compute, that LLM, that processing with the large language model, that is typically taken off-site to a data center, right? Running models. How do you do that privately?
Yeah, I've been told I have the crappiest microphone, so I'm going to try and make this work. But I love to think of this meme that it's a Simpsons clip. I think of my whole life as Simpsons clips. And there's this part where Mr. Burns and Smithers are walking into this compound, and they like go through a retina scan, and then they go through a handprint scan, and it's like all these metal doors are sliding out of the way, and they get to the final core of the compound, and there's like this little flimsy door that's blowing up in the back, and this dog walks in, and they kick it. And it's like, that's what we're all doing with our OpenClaws and other systems. We're trying to be so sovereign and button everything up, and then we just like plug Opus 4.6 in there, and all of our data just funnels out into this other company that is going to be taken over by the Department of War pretty soon. So it's like, we got to be careful with that. So we're all about giving people options. We come from a Lightning sovereignty. You know, Mutiny Wallet was a sovereign Lightning wallet that you would run with your own private key and then encrypted, you know, communication and synchronized to all your devices. We took that and we applied that to AI. So basically, we want to give people the option to have self-sovereign, cloud-hosted AI. And so people can operate in a hybrid. They can run local models when they work for them, and then they can run our models when they need more power. And then, you know, there's still times where you might want to use Claude, but you do it in a way that you know this is the data I'm giving them, and it will likely end up on the public internet someday. So I just got to be careful with that.
So you mentioned local models. Did these models eventually come to boxes that live in homes and businesses themselves?
Yeah.
Anyone can jump in here, by the way.
Okay, I'll do my quick answer, and I'll let these guys talk too. I mean, I think that we're still 1 to 3 years away from people just having models that they can run that are as powerful as what you can do today in Opus and some of these other big models. But the cloud models are always going to stay ahead. So it's going to be this game of like, well, now I can have the power of Opus 4.6 today at home, but like, what's the cloud stuff doing that's even better? So I don't know what it's going to look like, but I think eventually we will be running powerful models at home.
You have an opinion on this?
Yeah. So right now there's this huge gap, all right? Like what it costs today to get a local inference engine versus the power that you receive from it is it doesn't add up compared to $100 a month Anthropic subscription to Opus 4.6. You're not going to convince hardly anyone except a absolute extremist to opt out of the superpower that is Anthropic servers and into a local model that's effectively a mongrel, right? But that's going to narrow very quickly, much faster even than we saw in the SaaS world, right? So for a long time, large, highly capitalized big tech companies were able to iterate on software products so fast. They had such massive R&D and engineering departments and, you know, marketing departments that they could really figure out what the world needed and build it so much faster than the open source community would. Now, they wrote on the backs of open source protocols and open source libraries, but they built proprietary software at incredible speeds and were able to amass the world's largest fortunes as a result. But as we've seen in recent years, their ability to iterate on software products versus the open source world ability to iterate on software products has narrowed to almost nothing, right? Like you can now reach for file sharing programs and messaging programs that are completely open source that have almost no loss of user experience over what is offered by Telegram or Google. And that took 20 years to narrow the gap from not a chance to pretty much the same thing, with the sole exception of actually getting it up and running, which is the piece of the puzzle that we attempt to solve as a company. But with the AI stuff, as with everything else, everything's happening faster now, right? So Anthropic's gap on not only its closed source mega tech competitors, but on the open source world might be substantial today, which it is, but that might be gone in 2 weeks. Forget 20 years, right? Maintaining a gap in the race to AGI and beyond is good luck. So I am hugely, hugely bullish on open source, self-hosted LLM for local inference, and we, probably not appropriate for this conversation, but actually have very concrete plans to like roll this stuff out now, like this year. Like it's gonna happen way faster than people realize.
That's amazing to hear. So looping back into open source and the IoT side of things with running this locally, why don't you tell us, Joe, about what you're working on at Tether with MOS and the mining SDK, because I do think these are related. I mean, we're talking about open source so that you're getting a community of models working on this stuff, really being prompted by individuals, so it's the community that you're trying to get behind it, to use this to manage mining operations from large to small, is my understanding. Why don't you talk about that and how it relates with developers and building this network, and also the communication aspect, hole punch as well, I want to hear, and how this ties into the talk.
Yeah, no, it's very interesting because what we are building is something that fits pretty good with what these guys are building. So we are mostly focused on mining. So we've built this mining operating system that is like a management tool. We found ourselves like 3 years ago building our first mining site, and we had to choose what kind of management tool we wanted to use, and we decided to build it ourselves. So we started building this, and then we decided to open source it, because of course, like open source software is better in any sense. I don't have to convince you, I think. So in the process of open sourcing this tool, we understood, talking with the industry in general, that probably would have been better to build an SDK, a toolkit, instead of a tool. So that's the reason why we make this step on saying, okay, let's open source the tool, but let's build a toolkit, so an SDK that other people can use, or other AIs can use to build tools. So it perfectly fits with what these guys were saying. So software is becoming more and more a commodity. So with these agents, you know, as Matt said, this SaaS company, they had like a huge advantage in the last years because they had the best engineers to build softwares. Right now, the best engineer you can have is like Claude, you know, or of course you still need engineers, but it's way easier to build good software. So all this SaaS industry that has built like a fortune out of their knowledge, now all this knowledge is commoditized. So everybody has it. So what really matters to have like a sovereign future, either is like for your home or for your mining site, bigger, how big it is, it can be just a machine in the pool or a gigawatt farm. You want to run it like sovereignly, in a sovereign manner. And to do it, you need these building blocks. You know, I mean, if to run it sovereign in a sovereign manner, you need like sovereign software, and to build sovereign software, you don't want to trust as a SaaS service. You want to build it yourself, and to build it yourself, you need these building blocks. So building blocks are like SDKs. Okay, for example, I envision like a Start9 SDK where you can build your own tools. For example, that's great. And what you're doing for mining is building an SDK that everybody can use to build mining apps, mining dashboards, mining automations. And everybody's asking me, yeah, but Tether is like printing money, why is it focused on open source and stuff? Yeah, okay, that's a good question, but the point is, the point is that we are in a privileged position. So we want to invest for the future, and the future we see is a future where we are going to have agents running mining sites completely in an autonomous way. And you know, to get there, as I just said, what you really need is a framework of tools that you can use to build these tools again. So the most important thing for us right now is to build this framework, because there's nothing out there. You know, it's like a bunch of closed source tools that are doing like their work, but they are not envisioning this future. They are trying to use the SaaS modeling. No, but it's not. The future is not the SaaS. The future is you have agents that build what you need instantly. You just ask it, and it answers. So that's what the future we see, and that's what the reason why we are building this infrastructure in an open source manner. We want all the other competitors, let's say like Foreman or Brains, or all these players to use the SDK actually to build their software. And we want the manufacturers, we want every kind of company that builds services or devices in the mining industry to build their own integrations inside the tool, inside the SDK, so that everybody can just have an agent, AI agent, that connects to this common infrastructure and build what you need instantly. So that's the vision, and it pretty aligns with what the guys here said, because with this infrastructure for mining, of course, is going to be very useful for big miners as us, you know, for managing gigawatts farms, but it's useful also for your house, for heating your garage with a couple of miners. And heating your garage with a couple of miners with very rough tools is good. You can, you know, put some patches here and there, but building with industrial standards, that's another thing. So that's the reason why we are building this. Yeah, sorry for the rant.
Is SaaS really dead? I want to hear from everybody. I mean, Marx, you spent a lot of time in the Silicon Valley, right, working in the early tech craze. You know, I keep hearing this from everybody. I'm curious to get everyone's perspective. Like, did we peak? Everything got centralized. We have all these data centers. There's still large LLM compute, dumping a lot of heat, by the way. But is it all going to kind of diffuse back into the homes? I mean, I'm curious to hear your thoughts and work our way down.
Okay.
What does the future look like?
Yeah. So there is the human tendency where we don't want to do everything ourselves, because part of it is we don't trust ourselves to make all the right decisions or have all the know-how to make sure that we've covered all our bases. So that's where SaaS has come in for a lot of us, right? Everybody is capable of running their own email at home if they want to. We have been for 30 years, but we don't, because there's all extra work that we need to do around it and make sure we're running it correctly and have security in place. So we trust other people to run our email. I think that human tendency will still be there, but the difference is these agents are going to get so smart that you will be able to lean on them more to do your security analysis for you. So I think you will get more customized software, but in one way, I think it might turn into more of the local farmer, local rancher kind of farmer's market type approach, where you're going to have consultants in your community who are helping you build and customize your software for your business. And maybe you have your own CRM that's built just for you, and another town over, they've got CRMs that they're using that are built just for them. And you're like, hey, my buddy running a shop over there has this feature that he likes. Can you help me implement that? And so Silicon Valley, I think, is kind of losing its grip on software and on the world. It's not going to hold the world hostage anymore. It's going to be much more localized, whether it's in your local community or yourself at home, kind of building your own stuff. But no, it's definitely becoming more local.
What gets put in the house, Matt? Just one black box? A brain?
Oh, there might be a few, but you know, to just summarize what he just said, like, this is a generational beatdown. Like, what's happening to SaaS right now? It's hard to overstate how disruptive the agentic technology is. Okay, like the bet in Silicon Valley for the last 25 years has been monthly active users, monthly recurring revenue, data mining, subscription fees, and even up until last year at least, that was all they would bet on, right? That was the bet. Anything that dealt with personal services, hardware sales, unless you had already proven massive global demand and reached some kind of, you know, hyper scalability, they just wouldn't even look at you, right? So all the capital in the world was flowing into these business models that required you to build a digital product and then monetize it in a rent-seeking way forever by mining data and charging subscriptions and getting the consumer addicted. We have basically seen that entire thesis, without hyperbole, wiped out in the last 6 months. It's over, okay? It's like somebody dancing around the ring saying, I'm the champ, and just getting a one-shot knockout. Like, we just wiped them out. It's over. They will cling to profits and power for another year or two before they throw in the towel. But if you were going to place a short ever, this is the big short. Forget the housing market of 2008, short Salesforce, short everything that sells a software product.
I'm out of here.
Not financial.
I'm going to go call my broker.
Just it's financial advice. you'll, you'll thank me, I promise. It just, they're done. Some of them will manage a miraculous pivot towards a LLM hosting, right? Which is where all these companies are going to attempt to pivot, because when everyone's running local software, which is exactly what's about to happen, right? If there isn't an open source tool that satisfies your computing needs, your agent will build it for you. No big deal, okay? Like everyone will be running custom dashboards, custom software. It'll all be whipped up in a matter of minutes. However, where's that inference taking place, right? That's the whole key to this equation, is that all the software will be customized and running locally, but what built it? Which LLM built that software? And as it stands right now, it's Anthropic, okay? Like if you're building local software in any meaningfully efficient way that's actually gonna work, you're using Opus 4.5 or 4.6, that's it. The other ones are pale in comparison. And so what that means is that Anthropic owns the world. It means that one company has just single-handedly wiped out the entire SaaS industry. So unless we can figure out how to wipe out Anthropic, we've just created the next boss of planet Earth. So local inference is the key to the survival of human freedom and dignity. And Maple is one step on the way to that future. It's not the full end game, but it is a huge improvement on direct inference on remote servers. And hopefully what Tether and Start9 are building and others will be the end game, right? The ability to do it for real, locally, in a self-hosted, self-contained way.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And I wanted to add that it's not my work in Tether, but we are building an AI framework. It's called QVAC. That is exactly this. So it's a framework to, it's another SDK, again, that helps you to build local agents that runs on your phone, on your laptop. And I mean, we don't need general AGI, like big models for everything. Like for example, imagine like just translating text. You don't need, if you want just to translate a text from English to Italian, you don't need to send the text to Sam Altman. You know, you can run a very easy model that runs and do the inference on your phone for doing a translation. It's the same thing as calculator runs on your phone. You don't need to send the expression to a server to make the calculation. It's the same for your phone. So I don't know. I wanted to just to add a thing on what these guys said about this, because it's they already said almost everything. But the pieces that is just missing here, in my opinion, is that as we've been talking before this panel, is that AI is going to create like immense amount of value, immense. But we still have to keep the focus on Bitcoin, because it just came to my mind an expression. You know, if you think about AI plus Bitcoin, it equals infinity. So infinite wealth. We're living like in the real free market. AI does everything we need. We just live and enjoy the life. AI plus fiat is 1984. You know, is Orwell, is total surveillance. So AI is great. Let's build it, but let's keep the focus on the Bitcoin ethos. That's very important.
I'll share a quick story, totally agree, about how all the stuff these guys are working on has impacted the work Dylan and I are doing at Exergy, and looping it back into Hashrate heating, the Heatpunk movement. You know, we've had these installers on the panel before here talking about hash rate splits, 80% to me, 10% to the customer, flipped, whatever, and this incentive structure of having a Bitcoin miner that's also an electric heater, it's a computer, it's connected to the internet, remote monitoring, right? It's an internet-connected device. You can kind of do predictive maintenance. You could schedule the plumber to come out and fix it before the homeowner even knows there's an issue. We've had on our roadmap to build some form of remote monitoring for a while. We bought a $100 Raspberry Pi, or Dylan pulled one out of his butt crack. He has them all over.
Butt cracks or Raspberry Pis?
Yeah. And we spun one up, got OpenClaw on it, connected to Opus 4.5 or 4.6, and I said, hey, we want to remotely monitor these Bitcoin miners as heating infrastructure. Here's our Home Assistant API endpoints. Here's the API for the Canaan Avalon home miners. And it was like, cool, I'm going to go install a database, a PostSQL database. I'm going to get Grafana. I'm going to make dashboards. We're going to monitor chip temps. We're going to let you know if you're calling for heat, but hash rate is down. Then I'm going to flag you. And we were getting automated text. This was like 2 prompts, and it completely just made me realize, holy smokes, that just built what I thought would take me a quarter to build, or even longer. And you mentioned something I want to hear you talk more about, Joe, is automated Bitcoin mining operations. So, I mean, I think what I just described is the same thing at the micro scale, right? How do you foresee this playing into AI, local run models, into managing Bitcoin mining operations, the whole smart home, really the sovereign smart home, any IoT device? It could be a commercial building application, a large gigawatt site. It could be this venue right here. And then as we work our way down, I want to hear the thoughts from Matt and Mark's. What actually lives in the building to do this? Is it simply, a little computer that's headless with more horsepower for the local model, for that inference? Or are we always going to have people calling back to the large language models that are actually building the code base themselves? But talk to me more about your thoughts on the future of mining operations, as I just discovered can be built in one day for me.
No, I mean, I really think that what we'll need is not like a super intelligent agent, as I said earlier. So we need like a very specialized agent that runs locally on your server, maybe Start9 server, that has control over all the devices you have in your site, in your home, in whatever is the configuration, and has clear objectives. So as someone that is talk to him in English or Italian or whatever, and tell him what to do. So it's just that. I mean, whenever you have like an agent that is well trained with local data you're producing, and if you have like many different IoT devices, you have a lot of data. So training a local model is not that hard. So if you have that specific model running on your sovereign server locally, and this server has the knows how to communicate with other devices, maybe with a open framework as the one we are building, then it's just the limit is just the imagination. I mean, you can do whatever you want. You can turn on, turn off, like model the frequency, the consumption, whenever you want, just asking it in English. That's the reason why we are building what we are doing. So this MDK concept, this concept of the open SDK for mining, we are doing it because we know that when I say the future, maybe like in 2 years, I don't know, because we are in the point of inflection of the exponential. So things are happening very, very fast. So when I say the future, I say like maybe, I don't know, 2 years, 5 years. Anyway, in 2 years, 5 years, we know that the mining sites are going to be managed by agents. That's it, because it's managing a mining site. It's pretty easy. You have just only one objective: be the more efficient you can. That's it. You want to run all the time, and you want to be efficient. That's it. So it's clear objective. You just tell him to the agent. The agent has the full control of what's happening on site, and it does it. I mean, it's just it. So that's it.
What are the hardware pieces of the puzzle to this sovereign, non-dystopian future, Matt? I know that we've talked about routers. We've talked about ears listening over different communication protocols, separating these things. When do they come together? What exists in the buildings of the future?
So when we set out in 2019 to build Start9, which very few people realize because most people today think that we build a Bitcoin node. When we set out in 2019 to build what we're building, what we set out to build was a sovereign computing paradigm. And even then, our tagline was sovereign computing. Okay, so it's always been the same vision. It's always been the same strategy. Things have accelerated, but it's very much in line with what we thought was going to happen. And so our vision of the future and our purpose for existence is the sovereign smart home, right? Broadly speaking, that's kind of means the sovereign smart world, okay? But the home is the focus, because if we can get the homes to be sovereign, then the world will also be sovereign. So we focus on the sovereign smart home. And our vision of how the home will be organized from a hardware standpoint is that you will have a brain, okay? Now that could be multiple servers or one server, but the point is that they'll be aware of each other and be working together, so effectively it's a single brain, and the brain is the server. So it's either one or more servers, and that is where all the data are processed and stored, okay? It is where all the knowledge and strategy and inference and all that will need to happen. So servers, though, like what use is a brain if it cannot communicate to the body? All right, so the analogy there is the router. So routers are the traffic controller of any computer network. They decide which packets are allowed to flow in which direction. They can rate limit, they can whitelist, they can blacklist, they can enable, disable, et cetera, right? So routers are this extremely important piece of the computing paradigm that most people don't think about, but everyone has, right? You know it's important if you have it and you've never thought about it, right? It's just this essential component to the entire computing network, which is, it's what enables all the packets to flow. So the router is the traffic controller. You can think of this kind of like a nervous system. And then what you have are the limbs. You have the body, right? The actual sensory input that is required by the organism. So you have cameras and doorbells and humanoid robots and all these edge devices that are not only gathering information from the world, but acting in the world, okay? And all that information and instructions need to be passed through the traffic controller, which is the router, to the brain, which is the server or servers. And so we started with the heart of the system, which was the server, right? So that's what we've spent the last 6 years building, is a server operating system that makes running a personal server actually accessible to a normal person, and now to an AI, right? We think the AIs are gonna prefer StartOS. That's the conclusion that we've come to, is that like this, they're gonna want to run on StartOS because we've built the guardrails, we've built the recipes that will enable the user success stories. So we have the server, which is at this point built. We've been selling it for years. We're about to get a massive upgrade, the biggest upgrade ever, and we have some great plans for the future. The router is coming this summer, so the Start9 router, which is a new router operating system called StartWRT, is a fully open source router operating system that is going to make advanced, very advanced networking techniques trivially accessible to average people. Then we break into the edge device world, so cameras and doorbells and whatever else. And that, when I say we, I don't mean we Start9, I mean like the world, okay?
Heaters.
Hashrate heaters are edge devices. And our vision of this and advice to any companies engaging in this world has been very aggressively, keep your devices stupid, right? All edge devices should be idiots. They should collect information from the environment and forward it to the brain. And then they should take instructions from the brain and act in the environment. They should not themselves be more intelligent than they need to be. It doesn't mean that they can have no intelligence, but you want the system, and I know this is a weird thing to say in a room full of Bitcoiners and somebody who advocates personally for decentralization in all things, you want it to be highly centralized. Right? Like decentralization on a macro scale means every home is independent of every other home, but each home should be highly centralized, right? You need a central intelligence. You need a brain of any given organism. And so if everyone is trying to make their edge devices really, really smart, which is what's happening right now, like everyone who's making a camera is trying to make the camera really, really smart. The camera plugs into an LLM. The camera stores data. The camera knows all the, no, the camera should just collect video footage and send it to the server. And so our vision, final vision of the sovereign smart home is a central server that processes and stores all the information, a router that protects the network from outside, from without and from within, and then stupid edge devices that are under the control of the server, which itself is under the control of the human, and is powered by, hopefully, a very, very powerful local inference engine. GPU clusters in every home, ASICs in every
Exactly.
home. Yeah.
And so outside of the router, once those packets are passed, marked, is every building, every home, every person going to use these large data center models that are hopefully encrypted and peer-to-peer? Or sorry, not peer-to-peer, but secure enclave like Maple AI? Or is that going to end up being only reserved for the actual builders and the tinkerers? Is it going to just be, you know, the AI in the house is enough for the average person? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah. So we've talked all about the sovereign computing that can happen at home, right? And I think one of the pieces of hardware that we kind of overlook a lot is the hardware that we have in our own head, our own brain, right? We need that to be sovereign as well. And one way that we are kind of giving up on that is we depend on these systems like Anthropic, and we talk to them a lot, right? And we're dumping our thought process in there. And these systems are writing biographies on us. They're creating this whole, dossier on each person in this room. Every person who's talked to OpenAI, like Sam Altman has a whole thing about you that he knows about you. Probably more than you know about yourself. You're not that self-aware. And so it's kind of scary what we're giving away. And then at any moment, they can just start to nudge you in certain directions, right, without you realizing it. So it really comes down to we need to first lock that system down. So Maple's trying to do where we take the privacy of local, but we pair it with cloud hardware by encrypting the LLMs. But also Maple is actually a hybrid system. We run some local LLMs when you download the software and run it, because we're always looking at how can we optimize things. So if it doesn't have to run on cloud hardware and can run locally, we're going to do that locally for you. And as hardware gets stronger, then we will move more of it local and depend less on the cloud hardware, unless there's a true advantage to the cloud hardware. So we're in this spot right now. We're trying to give people options, right? But really the future that I'm trying to build Maple for and have us positioned for is where people are not just doing I think we need to have a centralized server at home. I like what you're talking about there. And then I also think that we're going to be wearing earbuds that are talking to AI. We're going to be wearing pendants. We're going to have glasses on with cameras. Like, those things are already here and coming. And they're going to be running proprietary firmware that we won't know what it's doing, where the data is going, who it's talking to, right? Really, I would love to have open, verifiable firmware that can run on these systems. And you know where the data is being saved, you know what it's talking to. If it can pipe back into your home, to your own central brain that you have at home, even better. If it needs to talk to some cloud, make it an encrypted cloud AI that it can talk to. But the important part is, if you go get in a self-driving car and you aren't in control or know what that firmware is running, you can't inspect it, you don't really know what guardrails it has, and you might be a person of interest to the government that is not allowed to ride in that car. And we're starting to turn ourselves over to all of these companies that are trying to build this AI future for us, and we're losing control, and just really in every aspect. And we need open source. We need people pushing for open firmware. We need verifiable software. It's all the Bitcoin ethos stuff. We need to now take that out of Bitcoin and infuse it into every single technology that we're working with.
Final thoughts, Matt, and then Joe.
Everything you're saying just made me think of something. So, you know how I actually don't have like a exact example off the top of my head, but there's a movie or a book somewhere where the evil guy wins over the good guy by getting him addicted to some substance and then withholding it, right? So you get this person addicted, and since you're the supplier, you now own this person. They'll do anything to get their fix, right? This is a trap. And if I'm being honest, this is how I feel right now. Like, I have such a taste for this power, for this insane drug that is Opus 4.6, that if Anthropic were to just be like, hey, 10,000 a month, I'd probably be like, okay, I'll figure out how to make it work.
They're subsidizing you right now.
I'm telling you, I'll pay anything. It's like a horrible feeling internally to know that truth about myself, and I'm very concerned about it, because if they were to withhold it or extort me for it, I have no defense. I need this, and it's I don't want to say that that's the problem. That's not the problem. I do need this. We all need this. We all should be okay with this, right? Like, this is the future. You can run away to the woods. I'll give you a high five. I'm serious. Like, great for you. Abandon, opt out, go to the woods, be happy, do the caveman thing. I'll give you a high five. I admire you. But if you want to stay in this world, you have to leverage these tools. It's like trying to play professional football when everyone on the field is taking steroids except for you. You're just going to get crushed. Okay, if you're not using these tools for 90% of the work that you do, you're not going to have a job next week. I'm not kidding. You're all fired. Everyone's fired if you don't use these tools to the max.
Except for the tradesmen.
There's if you're doing personal services in the world, real world work, fine. You're going to hang on for a couple more years before the humanoids show up. But if you're not leveraging these tools for 90% of your work, you don't have a job next year. And so you got to do it. But the problem is that right now the only supplier of it is some centralized company. So the whole key to the future is not to reject AI and not to rely on it being supplied by a third party, but to know how to build it for yourself. It's like admitting you're addicted to food and being like, well, how am I going to ensure that I eat? Grow a garden. That'll ensure it, right? And maybe the future will have a federated network of local suppliers of LLM inference where just like going to a local restaurant, right? You can subscribe to somebody locally for your inference, or maybe you go to the mega tech people who are putting poison in your food. The future will hold the same, but the point is that we all need the ability to do it for ourselves as a balance of power, as a check on power of these runaway centralized systems. So local inference powered by local software running on your own hardware, open source, self-hosted, is an absolute necessity of the future if we are not all going to be the pathetic, addicted slaves of AI inference. So I'll just leave you with that thought. Like, use it to the extreme, but as the tools become available, try not to get it supplied by the big supplier. Try to grow it for yourself.
Yeah, adding on this, I totally agree with you, Matt, and I really think that it's very important to keep this in mind. So getting addicted is pretty easy, so keeping that in mind that you can get addicted and you have to focus on something that is not addictive for you, it's the way to go. But since we all agree that the future is about AI, that we are going to use these models in a crazy ways, we all agree that these models have to be local, have to run in your house, on your farm, or whatever. And we all agree that these models have to be open source, so that everybody can verify it, that everybody can contribute, and all. But open source doesn't exist without contribution. So if I have one last thought is contribute. So thanks God, we have great builders like Matt and Mark that are working on this cool stuff. But without you guys using these tools and giving feedback, giving suggestions, battle testing these tools, there's no future for these technologies. So the call to action is test technology, test open source technology, contribute, and help this bright future make real.
I'm so glad I could be joined by you three gentlemen here on stage. I do think it's related. I mean, the sovereign smart home, Hashrate heating, idiot devices that make heat in Bitcoin in the house. To avoid that 1984 scenario that you described, Joe, the future is potentially very bright. We want resilience, robustness, reliability, sovereignty at every layer of the home, from your data to your heat utility to the energy you generate. Maybe it's solar panels and a battery backup. And the money, privately earned sats directly from the Coinbase transactions that no one can censor, right? And so I believe all of this is freedom tech, and they're all related. I wanted to make sure we got everyone on stage here today because I think it's related to what we're building here with the Hashrate heating industry. So thank you. Let's give a huge round of applause to these three guys here on stage.